Welcome back to Brush Up Your Game. Tristan and I are back with another Rankum. This time we are looking at the top Burrells. Well, not truly top, all of the Burrells. This is going to be a long one, buckle in. But we got 21 Burrells between named generics, and you might be going, wait, how do you get to 21? Well, just just go with it. Uh, but yeah, uh, stay tuned. Go ahead, watch, and hopefully enjoy. Alrighty. Well, it is Burrell ranking, and we've got 21 different Brells, whether they're named or generics. And yeah, this is probably going to take a while, but I had an interesting time making my list. Tristan, how about you?
Uh, yeah, I mean it's hard. At some point you start to, try to really make decisions as to what is the difference between these two ships. I feel like the latter half, the first half of the list, the lower rankings, I was trying to decide why one of these ships was actually, slightly better or worse than the other, and the other, you know, just trying to make the best of some bad ships maybe. And then the top half was trying to, just trying to split hairs between really good ships to begin with that I want to have in my fleet all the time. So,
Right.
but it was fun to go through and check all these out.
Yeah. Definitely some nostalgia and some memories for me, and some ships I went, wait, that was a thing? Ugh. All right, well, let's kick it off. What is your worst of the worst? Ah, the Tyrol. Well, my worst of the worst is Cruge's Bird of Prey, and yeah, for me, an action that should be a passive ability is really what it is. And I get that searching the deck for a direct hit can be pretty good, right? That could be the difference between destroying a ship or not. But still, it's an action that you're gambling on, and unless you really build towards having having a way to give yourself more crits, this is a tough sell. So that's why Cruge's Bird of Prey is living at the end for me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. The For me the Torals at the bottom, um, it's a passive ability, but it requires you to not be cloaked, which is kind of the antithesis of what Klingons want to do. You get two defense die, which isn't too bad, but it's an optional ability, so it only goes off once. So it doesn't protect you from multiple attacks. Plus, you get an Ox token. It's just a lot of downsides for me for that to come off.
Mm-hmm.
It's too bad that the ship comes with some really good other cards. It comes with the versions of Lursa and Bator, which are fun. There's a pretty decent elite talent interrogation that comes with this ship. But the ship itself, I probably wouldn't consider using, in a competitive format.
Yeah. Oh, I should note before I forget, Cruge's Bird of Prey also does not have a tech slot.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that was a delineating factor, and definitely is a theme for a lot of my choices.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I'm with you because the Tyrol is my number 20. So while you do get the option, you can trigger this multiple times because it is that wind defending subheader. How many Ox
Uh,
power tokens do you really want?
yeah.
And I don't think four is the correct answer.
Yeah. Again, I
It's a
totally
tough
agree with
sell.
you.
Yeah, it's bad. It's all over the place. It's bad.
For me, it's the assimilated Borg ship. I mean, first of all, it shows it's a Romulan warbird,
Yeah.
um, but that's more to WizKid's quality assurance than anything
Mm-hmm.
else. But you get an extra shield, you get an extra attack, but the shields, you're going to be cloaked. So you're still, the extra attack die is nice, but it's still a paper tiger. Costs more. Uh, the ability to me, I mean, it's kind of cool. You can re-roll your dice a second time, so it's kind of like an extra bonus target lock. But to spend 3 drone tokens seems kind of high to
Yeah.
me.
Oh, it's very
Um,
high.
yeah, so again, I can't see it being super effective. So what you're really paying for is a lot of the ability to use some Borg upgrades and then an extra attack die, and you're paying a lot more for it.
Hmm.
So
Boy, if there was ever a time for them to have broken their format and given you an extra hull instead of an extra shield,
yeah,
this would have been it.
that would have been it. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah. Um my number 19 is Koroks, Bird of Prey.
Hmm.
And this is, I don't hate it. It does have some of the things I'm looking for. It has a tech slot, but it almost feels like a win more ability, which is, at range 1 while cloaked, do I really need you to roll one less defense die?
Hmm.
Probably not. It also double weapon, so a single crew that hurts it a little bit. Um, I don't know. I don't hate it, but to me, it's never been something I've loved, and because it's so limited, how many times am I really going to be at range 1 while I'm cloaked? And if I'm already doing that, shouldn't my 5 defense dice or 5 attack dice be enough to hammer home the point?
Yeah, exactly.
I would hope. Uh, yeah, I
Yeah.
could see
Well,
it.
I have. Oh, go ahead.
I could see it moving up, but the difference between it being here at 19 versus moving up to like 17, 16, I don't think it would really make much of a difference.
Yeah. Um, I have Krug's Bird of Prey here,
Okay.
so not much higher than where you had it. And pretty much the same reasons. I mean, you have to use an action to trigger the ability, and the Klingon. You need that action for Klingons to get some attack quality there.
Mm-hmm.
I think if this card were being done today, this would probably be like a combat phase ability. And you'd have to take an aux token or disable a crew or something like that. I don't know, but
Or two time
um,
tokens.
or two, yeah, time tokens would,
Yeah.
would be fine. Anything like that. There's just too much to make that work. The pack comes with a couple nice cards. You have the infamous Maltz, and then you have Krug himself, which is kind of an interesting captain. He gives you an extra crew slot, which is not super common with Klingon captains. And then you can discard a crew to do some more damage, which is kind of cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, the Bird of Prey itself is less than stellar.
That's a nice way of putting it. All right. 18 for me, the assimilated vessel. And yeah, this would have been a fine ability at 1 drone, even 2 drones, but 2 drones pushes it. 3 over the top. Um, I do like the extra attack die. That's why it kind of jumped over a few ships, but it's just not. It's expensive. It, it's expensive in points you pay. It's expensive in the cost you're paying to activate the ability. It is one of the very few ways you get to re-roll dice twice, and so that's the only reason it moved up at all for me.
Yeah, and I have Korax here. Again, pretty much mimicking what you said. You have to be within range 1. Taking away a defense die is nice, but I always feel like it's not really taking away. You're not like preventing an evade. You're actually preventing like 4/10 of an evade because there's no guarantee they're going to roll anything anyway. So
Right.
um, and yeah, it's the cards. I mean, it kind of synergizes nicely with Korak the captain because at range 1 he can disable an opponent's shield, and you can put reckless assault on there from Alliance 2, and just to have some fun, I guess. But you're hoping that ship gets to range 1 before it gets blown to pieces. So
Yeah, and that's a tough ask. All right, what are we up to now? 17. So my 17, I went with the Rotaran, and the Rotaran, I like the ability, most of the ability. Get a second maneuver. Okay, fine. It's limited speed, 1 to 2. Fine, I'll take an Ox Power token. You lose me the moment you say you cannot attack this round.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment the whole ability fell off the cliff. If that's the action I've got to take for my ship ability, uh, I shouldn't have to give up my attack in order to do it. So that's why the Rotaran's gonna sit here at the bottom, near the bottom for me.
Yeah. I have the Coronar because I feel like it's very much a mirror of Korok's ability, but now you're just getting an attack die rather than taking away a defense die, which is a little bit better. But it's still got the same. It's got the same slots. It's got those 2 weapons and a crew. I'd rather have another crew, and you still have to be within range 1 and cloaked to use the ability. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit better than Korok's, but it's still nothing special.
Well, see that works very nicely because my
There
next
you go.
ship is the Coronar. And then yours being the Rotaran. So I think we very much agree on why bad ships are bad ships. And yeah, much like you said, I would still rather gain the attack die than you lose a defense die because I can do stuff to my attack dice. And you know what? Rolling 6 attack dice at range 1, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And there are times I'm going to need that in order to actually get through to maybe kill a ship. Perhaps a rare set of instances, but moments.
Yeah, for me, the Rotaran, the reason why it gets a little bit higher up here, I do feel that there is a potential use for this ship, even with the lack of attack ability when you use the action. Obviously, there's too much you're taking away with that action, but like early in the game, those first couple of rounds, or maybe you're not engaging yet to be able to use that ability, where you wouldn't feasibly be attacking anyway, and to flank your opponent and to make them get worried about that ship
Mm.
because it's in a very disadvantageous position for them. I think there's something there, especially now with the way the game is, where there's a lot of newer ship abilities or upgrades, elite talents that Romulan cloaking device that works on being maneuverable and taking extra movements. There's maybe something to reconsider there, but yeah, there's still a ton of drawbacks as well. And that if you would take away the fact that it was an action, or the fact that you have a ox token, or the lack of attack, if any one of those three, if you take it away, I think it makes it a lot better. As it is, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, and I think two things win against this ship for me, aside from what they did to the named ability. One, it was the hero ship, Martok's hero
Yes.
ship from Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
Two, it was a cavort. It was not a Brel, it was a cavort in
Yeah,
Deep Space Nine.
yeah, and this is one of several ships. Just to compare it to the Decipher CCG, where they don't agree on whether it's a Cavort or a Burrell class. Retarn is one of those.
Well, with the pounding it took in Deep Space Nine, there's no way it was a Brel. Unless you're telling me plot immunity is worth like 4 defense dice.
Well, there's something to be said for that. That should be
Yeah,
that
there
should be an
is.
elite talent. Plot immunity. Roll 4 extra attack dice.
Yeah, right. Um, but yeah, it's a the return just was a letdown for what I was hoping it would be, and I that's why I just had to knock it a little bit more. So that brings us to number 15. Ah, I understand. I went with the Ning Tao, and I I like the Ning Tao, um, but there's just other ships I like better. And this is where, for me, there's some ships I start to like and then dislike. And I do like being able to do a sensor echo and then a come about. That's a really cool ability. But I think there's enough weapons and other abilities that can take advantage of an Ox power token beside an enemy ship that I don't necessarily want to voluntarily give that to somebody. Now, this ability on a Romulan ship would be very scary. But
Sure.
on a Klingon ship, it loses a little something.
Yeah, I got the generic Borg Klingon ship, mainly just because you know it's just kind of it's pricey for what you get. You get
It
the
is.
extra attack die, but again, it's a three hull ship. It's going to last just as long as any other Klingon bird of prey. As of right now, I mean, it hasn't been recosted, so I don't know what the cost would be, but as of right now, it's just too much. So
Yeah. Um, and that's where I went with Spud's recosting. They
sure,
theorize it would be at 20. That's still pretty pricey.
it's still too much. I mean, compare that to a 13 generic
Yeah.
for essentially one extra attack die. I guess one extra shield, which you're probably not going to use.
No, probably not.
So
Although with the 5 attack die, you might want to run it not cloaked. I don't know. It depends.
that's true, and I think I've seen a few people run these generics in a fleet in the Fremont. I guess throw some Dahar Masters on there, and that can become a legitimate threat. But
Yeah.
I think I'd rather put the points somewhere else.
I'm with you. For me, my 14, I went with the generic Klingon Brel that does not have a tech slot. I'm sorry, that's the wrong Brel. That goes crew weapon.
Hmm.
Because to me, if I'm only getting one faction off of a Brel, it better have more useful slots. And more useful slots than weapon crew. So, yeah. That's why that falls down. And I understand it costs 13 points, and 13 points, even with bad slots, is still very useful. But for me, it just isn't quite good enough.
Yeah, that's very fair. I don't like the two weapon crew slot that you need a tech slot in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, I have the Ming Tao. I mean, I do also love this ability. I mean, it does have a tech slot, and you naturally want to put Klingon cloaking device on there. But I think in this case, you can put Romulan cloaking device on there. It's gonna be a little more expensive, but the ability to come about after those sensor echoes would be fun. You could put Chatarg on there to deal with the Ox token to remain permanently cloaked if you want. But again, it's a very situational. It's not an ability you're gonna use every turn or rely upon. So it's kind of limiting to me for that reason. Um, yeah, it's a solid kind of middle of the road, named Burrell that I do consider, but I usually don't end up running. So
Right. And I think that's kind of where we're into now. These are now playable but middle of the road.
yes.
Uh, yeah. Well, and that puts us up at number 13, which this is where I have the Klingon Borg generic. Ooh, Chang's Bird of Prey. That's a little bit of a hot take.
Hmm.
Okay. So I don't have anything to add to the Borg. I'm with you. It's expensive. It's uh, extra attack die nice, but it's durability that you may or may not use. So now I can already hear the comment being typed right now. Chang's Bird of Prey. Wait, that's not a Brel class. That says Klingon Bird of Prey. You know what? It has the same stat line. It has the same exact maneuver dial. And you know what? We wanted 4 more ships.
Well, technically, there it's not. I don't think it's quite exact the same maneuver dial. It has three red maneuvers,
Ah,
three red turns, but it has green two banks, so it's slightly different.
okay.
Um, but otherwise, it's exactly the same. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's any official canon in place as to whether this is what kind of bird of prey this is compared to the Burrells. Um, I love the ability because you're effectively getting a free cloak action and every turn, and you also you can avoid target locks.
Yes.
But it relies upon you firing photon torpedoes, so it's nice you have, and not just photon torpedoes, any torpedoes, I suppose. But that's a good thing you have two tech slots, so you can kind of alternate those. But if for some reason you can't get a target lock, or you can't fire those, or anything gets jammed up with those secondary weapons, now this ability is useless, and it's just as effective as any generic bird of prey that's going to cost you more. So
Right.
um, that's just me. I do love the Chang Captain, the Chang 7 that comes with this ship,
Yes.
though. The free sensor echo is
Mm-hmm.
great, so that's worth it.
Yeah. No, and I mean, my Cheng's bird of prey isn't that much higher, so don't don't think of that. And you're right. You get a weapons or a munitions failure crit, and if you were only running one torpedo, you're in a world of hurt.
Yep.
That's why bring two weapons with this card. Just
Yeah, that's the reason you have the two weapon slots.
yeah.
This is the one time that I want two weapon slots on a bird of prey rather than a two crew. So
Yes, bring those and use them. Okay, number 12, and I'm sure I can feel the hate, not from you, Tristan, from the audience, but for me, number 12 is the HMS Bounty, and it's because well, there's a few reasons. One, there's no tech slot. B, do you really need four crew? And C, it's great to have evade, target lock, cloak, echo, scan battle stations on your action bar. But there's nothing here that lets you do more than one action. You're still limited. You just have a few more options in those limitations. Sure, you can run a bunch of crew, but if you actually wanted those extra actions, you're running Fed, and you're running this as a pure Fed ship. And I get it. It's a cool ship, but how much can you really do to make it worthwhile? We've talked Fed ships want tech. There's no tech here. You can make it happen, but it's going to cost you even more. And end of the day, it's a Brel. How much do you really want to invest in a Brel? So to me, that's why it fits at number 12.
yeah, that's totally fair. I have the two weapon slot generic Burrell, not that much higher than yours.
Okay.
Um, I mean, to be honest, part of me says, I don't care what the slots are on a generic Burrell because most of the time I just want to run 7 or 8 of these and put some captains on them, and not worry about anything else because they're going to get torn to shreds anyway. I'm not going to get too deep into what upgrades are on them.
Sure.
But if I do want that upgrade, I want to put a Klingon cloaking device on there, and I can't on here
Mm-hmm.
without having to spend extra points to make it happen, and there's no point to that. So that's why it's kind of middle of the road. It's nothing wrong with it, but it's not the one I'm going to choose.
How about that? All right. Hey, we line
There you
up.
go.
So this is the double crew weapon generic Brel. And I'm going to guess it mirrors a lot of what you just said. Don't really care about the slots, but if you do, you want the tech slot.
Yeah. Um, two crew is a little bit better because there are maybe some combos you want to run with two Klingon crew, but I don't want to put them on a generic Burrell. So,
No, maybe a generic Vorcha.
which unfortunately doesn't have two crew. Um,
Yeah. Mm.
yeah, that was the one thing I was hoping and wishing for with Alliance 2 was that they're going to give us a new version of the generic Vorcha with two crew slots, and we did not get it. So
Yeah.
keep dreaming.
Yeah. That's a tough one. All right. Um. Okay. Well, that was 21 through 11, and now we get to the top 10.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Should we clear the board or anything with
Oh,
these? Or
sure. We can. I'll do this. I'll.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll let
Well,
you do the magic.
we'll just kind of. We'll just take all of this and set it up. Well, that works like a dream. There we go. Two parts. Okay, number 10. We'll come down here now. Ah. Okay, my hate is not entirely misplaced, or my choice there. Why don't you kick it off with why the bounty hits at number 10 for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fun. It's it's the only Federation Burrell that they don't even get a generic, which totally makes sense because if it was like a dual faction generic Burrell or something, it would be broken.
Very
Um,
much.
it's the only Burrell that you can put a battle station token on it, kind of natively, as it were. If you keep it faction pure, yeah, there's no need for 4 crew slots on here, but you can convert one of those to a tech slot if you want. Unfortunately, it can't take Klingon cloaking device because I'm pretty sure that's just for Klingon ships.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, there's some fun things you can do with a cloaking Federation ship. I think it's the only Federation ship that would have cloak on its action bar natively, which is kind of cool. I almost ran this in the Earth Romulan War campaign in Fremont, just because I was going to put Worf on there just to have say that the Klingons were allying with the Federation. But um, there's some fun things you can do here, but it's not something you're going to run a lot.
Yeah. I, and for me, the Chitang is a fantastic ship. But it, it just. This kind of comes down to okay, great. I have this built in target lock. So I'm sure I can find other actions to do. But those actions are either, okay, recloaking, which will probably happen frequently, but then I'm not any more durable. Um, I just. I think this is more. I like other abilities better, and this is. The Chitang was kind of the best of the middle for me, and this is where I drew the line. Um, I got I really have nothing bad to say about the Chitang. It's fallen out of favor in the meta because it is definitely overpriced. But if it's a 16, 17 point Burrell, I still don't know that anybody's running it today.
Yeah,
It's just not a strong enough named ability to really justify uh, the competitive play. And even then, I guess in mission play, scenario play, I'm not sure it's doing anything to help you. I don't know. It's a tough sell. It falls in a place where I had fun with it back in like Dominion War organized play. It was good. It was a prize ship, but nowadays I just don't know that I'll ever run it again.
yeah. I can't say I've seen anyone run it in the last year or so.
Yeah. All right. Number 9 for me is Cheng's Bird of Prey. So here we go, getting
There you go.
caught right back up. And I guess the reason it got ahead of the Chitang for me is that it does have that ability to keep cloaked to not be able or to be able to not take a target lock. And from that standpoint, I see more value in it. And now that Klingons have cheap torpedoes, it's actually moved up the list. So that's not a massive explanation to me, but a pretty straightforward, simple one. And this is even a ship that's worthwhile to cross faction torpedoes if you want to run Fed torpedoes or Ferengi
Mhm.
torpedoes. They're definitely good ones to bring over.
Yeah, Fed torpedoes, Ferengi. I think this is one of the ships where you can justify. I do love the Klingon torpedoes that came with the Raptor pack. You know, even though they're only 4 attack, well, you know, you're still getting 4 attack, but you can keep that target lock there. So you know, you just keep hammering your opponent until they're gone, and you stay
Mm.
cloaked. It's kind of cool.
Okay, yeah.
I got the Chatang here. Again, it's recosted. I think Fremont has it at 18. I mean, it's a great ability. It's a target lock that you don't need to target lock, so you don't have to worry about cloak or anything like that. I do think it has some value with especially with the new Klingon torpedoes from Alliance. I'm a little disappointed in them, but this is somewhere where I can see maybe using them. You get 5 attack die, you can convert a blank to a crit, and then you can just re-roll everything else, and you have some equality there while still even though you have to spend that target lock. So I'm not a huge fan of having 2 weapon slots here. Again, I'd rather have 2 crew. But of the kind of pre 2017 bird of praise, this is the one I'd probably be most likely to consider running today.
Fair enough. Well, that brings it to number 8, and I think there's a decent theme left with the top 8. Ah, okay. Interesting choice. Well, my number 8's the generic of Chang's Bird of Prey. So you're a Klingon bird of prey that's just a Klingon faction. It does give us the tech. I like that much. But it just, I don't know, nothing against it. I just don't. Everything else has a better use to me. So I that's why it fits at number 8, and it's there's nothing bad here. It's just not exciting, I guess, is what I'm gonna go with.
Yeah, I can see that. I think we're at a point where pretty much any of these ships from here on out, I would consider playing almost any time, every time I'm running Klingons, and there's very little, you know, uh, practical difference between them, in a game.
Yeah,
So this is where you kind of start splitting hairs. Uh, it's dual faction. There's some great independent upgrades you can put on here. You could put on Gorn Ale, things like that. You don't have the tech slot, I guess, is the one knock I have against this one. If it was tech, weapon, crew, it would probably be my top. But it's
yeah,
again, we're splitting hairs here. It's just not quite as good as some of the other ones, that I might consider. So
yeah. I I get it. Uh, my number 7, just your plain old generic Brel, the crew weapon tech Klingon, straight up. Just give me a Klingon and pay 13 points for it. I know it says 20. Don't worry, it's been recosted. It's 13. Um, yeah, again, I suppose at this point I value multiple factions to save myself points and give myself better options. So that's why a plain Klingon's going to lose out to multi-faction to me.
sure. Um, yeah, I think actually I'm gonna change real quick because in I maybe this is a faux pas here, but I am actually going to change it out to what probably should be here.
Okay.
Yeah. Just thinking about because I realized that the maneuver dial isn't the same here. So
Ah,
um, yeah, pretty much everything you said before. It's a generic. It doesn't have the same maneuver dial as the Burrell. It's got you lose those white hard threes. I think that can be uh, real critical in some situations in the game. So as much as having some extra green maneuvers is nice, I'd rather have the white hard turns. So
yeah, because then you don't have to do the green to get undone. I
exactly.
understand that. All right. So number 6. My number 6 was your number 8. The Ferengi Independent, and I do like being able to bring things like Meridor Green Gornale, and but the lack of a tech slot really is a hindrance and just something I can't fully support. It is, uh, I guess, the independent faction edition, just because of how many potential points that's going to save, does jump it over a baseline Klingon, even with a tech slot. But uh, yeah, it not enough to be ahead of other Brels that are coming.
Yeah, I have the Ferengi Klingon dual faction, a little bit ahead of the Independent because it does have the tech slot. Um, the reason that it's not higher is just for practical purposes. Like, we really haven't touched upon this too much, but some of these ships are easier to acquire than others, and in the tabletop environment, we don't have to worry about that. But if you wanted to play this on without proxies in the real world, to find a Ferengi faction pack to get this card is going to be really hard and really expensive. And so for that consideration, I maybe have it a little bit lower. Maybe it's not fair to the actual ship itself, but it's hard to want to play something and not be able to. So it is where it is.
I I understand that though. That is an important consideration. Uh, my number five is, hey, your number five, Lurin's Bird of Prey, and it's a nice named ship. It's actually been a minute since we've had a named ship here. We went on a little bit of a generic run there, but Lurin's Bird of Prey is a changed the meta for a minute there. Just being able to jump another ship to the front. The only downside was it had to be a Ferengi ship with a Ferengi captain. Except you looked at, your number six, and you said, wait a minute, that's a Ferengi ship, and I can put a Ferengi captain on that. So it was easy enough to jump a Ferengi captain up to the top. And then you got this. So you got Lurin's attacking first and that ship attacking second. And who doesn't love attacking first and second? Basically means you're not dying.
Yeah, I mean the ability is really it's almost unbelievable that to have your ships jump up to the top like that.
Yes.
Um, you know, so you can put two really low skilled captains, maybe captains you would never consider otherwise, but have interesting abilities, and you don't have to worry about that. Um, the downside is you have to make sure that you're in the both are in the primary firing arc is in the defending ship's view range, and I guess the other knock is that second ship has to have a Ferengi captain. If you wanted to do a Klingon pure build or something like that, you can't use Lurin's Bird of Prey. And then again, it's going to cost you if you want the actual card. This is the only Bird of Prey, the only Burrell I don't have in real life because um, I'm not going to pay $150, $200 for a Ferengi faction pack. So for that reason, I also get take some points against it.
I understand. All right. That brings us to number four. And probably me winning no friends. Okay. Why don't you go with the Burrell?
Uh, I had considered putting this at number one just because it's 13 points. It's probably the most used version of the Burrell in the game. It's super versatile. Uh, but again, it's a generic. It doesn't last long, and I think there are a couple ships here that have some really good abilities that make them better on paper. Facing a 13 Burrell swarm, that might be a little bit different, but one on one, there's a couple better ships.
Fair enough. So, Ducat's Bird of Prey at number four. Don't get me wrong, fantastic ship. But I think for what you're paying, there are just a couple of ships that have a little bit better cost to survivability, cost benefit ratios. I still have fun every time I run Ducat's Bird of Prey.
Mm-hmm.
This is my second best or second favorite named ship. Uh, there's a lot of fun and there's a lot of choices. If you're cloaked, you're getting either a bonus token or bonus captain skill. And this to me shows the really cool directions this game can go with design. And I hope there's more awesome stuff like this coming. I think there is. Ships of the Line shows us where the game can go as well. This is like my top four were tough choices. I got to number five. I was like, okay, I feel good. Then I went, wait, that's what's left. Oh goodness, no, this is bad. Uh, yeah, and I agonized for a bit about how to delineate here, and Ducat's just kind of lost out. Uh, Not because it's bad by any means. This is a solid ship that in a different day could easily be number one. But today
For
it fell
sure.
at number four.
For sure.
So yeah, again, nothing bad. Okay. Oh. Uh, I'll take it. So number three, the Kaskari. This is another one. The Kaskari. It lost out because of the lack of a tech slot to me.
Yeah.
But wow, what a cool set of abilities this ship has. And I love the thematic flair in the bottom half. When attacking a Klingon ship or a ship with a Klingon captain, just add a hit.
Mhm.
Aside from stealing tokens beside the defending ship if you're attacking a whole value of 4 or greater, that's like the underdog. That I almost wish that was like a built-in ability on some of these Burrells, or at least something we got to see more. But this is just cool, and I get, the albino wasn't really up to date on the maintenance on his Burrell, so not having a tech thematically makes sense. This is a very thematic ship. I couldn't justify it any higher, but yeah, these are two really cool ships.
I have the generic Dominion Klingon ship. It's a little bit higher than the Burrell simply because it does have that dual faction. There's some cool Dominion stuff you can slap on there
Yeah,
and make it more effective than the standard generic. Again, it does lose those white red turns, which is a little bit of a knock against it. I'm surprised. I really don't see the generic used too much compared to the standard generic Klingon ship. Maybe that's the reason why. But I think it's a solid generic um, you know ship in general, not just a bird of prey.
yeah. Well, I agree with that, uh, because my number two is the Ferengi Klingon generic, and just what that opens up, the flexibility of Ferengi, and Ferengi being a sub faction of Independent. So really, this might as well say Ferengi Independent and have a tech slot on it. So everything that was good about the Ferengi or the Klingon Independent, but not having a tech slot, this is now Klingon Independent, but has a tech slot. Uh, lots of good, lots of good that's opened up here, and a really cool ship that can do a lot and save you a lot of points with putting a few factions on here. So I like it. Brings a lot of options to the game, and hey, you can run Ferengi photon torpedoes and only pay 2 points for them,
Yeah,
which
good
I
point.
don't think it's necessary, but it can certainly be fun.
Put Chemocyte on there for 2 points.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that too.
Quark Sarcona for 2 points. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have Ducat's Bird of Prey. Um, I mean, it's 17 points. It's got a fantastic ability. It's got the slots that you really want to see on most Burrells. You can run Dominion and Klingon, and there's some great combinations you can put on there. Um, you know, any tournament that you're running right now, you're guaranteed to see at least a couple of Ducat's Bird of Praise. Very very common ship, and there's reason for it. It's really good, and it's probably maybe almost kind of overexposed for what it is. I mean, it's still a Burrell. It's paper thin in terms of its defense, but I've also seen it tear much larger ships apart. I think that the very first tournament I played in Fremont, um, Ducat's Bird of Prey almost single-handedly wiped out my entire fleet, and I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
very good, so maybe some credit where it's not due, but it definitely showed me just how effective that ship can be in the right hands.
Yeah, it's a monster, that's for sure. I think they did miss not calling this the Neprem from the Decipher days, but
Yeah. And again, Decipher had this as a cavort again, so
yeah,
um, which pretty clearly, I mean, based upon its size, it seemed pretty more Burrell-like in the series than a cavort, but who that was never very consistent throughout most of Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. So who
no,
knows?
no, not at all. But yeah, I mean, regardless, it's a great ship. Well, I suppose that brings us to the end here. Neither is a mystery. Um, I'll take the first word so that you can have the last word here. Dominion Klingon. And I do think this should get more run, more love. I'm sad that it doesn't because I think that you're mixing two very good factions, and I think that maybe there's some more hope for this as players start to get into the Alliance 2 box and see some more Klingon stuff. Maybe we'll see if the Dominion get another expansion box. Maybe that'll rejuvenate even more potential for this ship. But even without it, I think there's still some good upgrades for this and a lot of room that can a lot of room to grow what this ship can do. Not that it needs a ton, but it's a solid set of factions to build from, and Dominion have some nice cheap captains. That's what I'm discovering as I'm re-reviewing uh, old packs.
Yeah, Dominion's got some really solid stuff. Um, don't usually have a lot of high captain skill, but I mean, you can synergize so well, probably more than any faction. And imagine having like a Dominion bird of prey swarm with some of the synergizing abilities they have would be kind of scary, honestly.
Mm-hmm. The toughest part's going to be making sure you have enough models for this. Uh, I suppose run Burrell models. It wouldn't hurt. But
Is there any real difference? I guess I've never paid attention.
wings up versus wings down
Oh, okay,
in theory, but I don't think the thought had always been don't run a model in an attempt to deceive somebody, but
sure,
the Burrells and cavorts look identical.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, don't I don't think it much matters.
No, I probably wouldn't know the difference. As you can see, I didn't know there was a difference. Um, so call me crazy. I have the Koskari at the top. I know we've spent almost all of this discussion about how you need a tech slot to run Klingon cloaking device, and this one doesn't have one. I mean, it is independent. You could put repurposed cargo hold on here if you really want a Klingon cloaking device. I don't think it's essential at the end of the day, but it's nice to have. But I mean, for it's 16 points. I mean, that cost to me is just I can't believe it's that low for what you get. The even Ducat's Bird of Prey, which has a great ability, is it's just 17. The Luren's Bird of Prey is 18, and that ability isn't nearly as good as Coast Curry in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, but to steal those tokens away, you're going to see a lot of ships with 4-hull or greater. I mean, this could stop your opponent from firing off a multi-vector attack mode or prevent them from launching some counterattack. this is the ability is useful for multi-attack. So if you're going to run a torpedo fusillade against your opponent, you're going to strip off tons of tokens.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then that secondary ability of adding that damage. I mean, you're almost, maybe not 100% guaranteed, but you're going to see core so much. You're going to see Klingon ships so much in competitive play in tournaments if you're playing, 2 or 3, matches and stuff like that. You're going to run into that and use that ability. I just think it's fantastic for those 3 extra points above the generic. And those 4 slots are flexible there to really make it work. I think Coach Curry, it definitely sees play, but I think it's a little maybe underappreciated for what it is. And for what it's worth, I really like the picture on this card. I don't know why. I just think it looks cool. So that's why it's at the top. But like I said, the last 5, 6, 7, 8 ships could, you know, ask me again tomorrow and they're going to be different. But that's
Yeah.
where we're at right now.
Well, I think we do have some good consensus here. Our top three named ships are the Koskari, Ducat's Bird of Prey, and Lurin's Bird of Prey. And our top, at least, our top generic, without any argument, is the Dominion Klingon Bird of Prey.
Yep.
I'm not sure that fits for the top Burrell list, but there you go. The top Burrell was the Dark Horse candidate, so Dark Horse you didn't even know it was part of the list. um, yeah, you got to have fun with it. But yeah, I think, there's very much a line in the sand with these Burrells. Our list was similar, pretty similar, little differences, but we always seem to kind of catch up. It's,
Yeah, I think there's general agreement. Newer Burrells are the better Burrells for sure.
they are, which says something. And again, to reiterate, my list, I did look at them based pretty much only on named abilities, even if I looked at the Spuds costing, so even if they got recosted, but it really just comes down to what's the ability. And old Burrells just don't have great named abilities.
No, which
That's,
is
that's the sad part.
yeah, it's too bad. I mean, especially going back to the Return, that one definitely should be redone. I think at some point and give it the its due. Um, but I think for the game itself, that's fine because you have for newer players, that are coming in, you don't have to try to hunt down and find a Chitang or an HMS Bounty or a Chang's Bird of Prey, all of which are hard to find and expensive because those are all OP ships. Um, you know, you can pick up a Blood Oath or you can get a Cardassian pack, and they're both still readily available. And you can have some really good cards, really good ships, and I think that's great for the game where it is right now.
It is. Keeps things healthy. So, yeah. This is the start of a series that Tristan and I are going to do. We hope to continue with a lot of these. If you have ideas of topics you'd like to see us rank or do top 5, top 10 lists on, leave a comment. Let us know, and we'll consider and mull over them and go from there. Tristan, any last words?
No, thank you for having me rank these with you. I had fun. Klingon are my favorite faction, so it's always fun to get a chance to go through these. I think run some swarms, have some fun with these Burrells, and don't get blown up too bad.
Hmm. Well, get have a few ships blown up, just not all of them.
That's always the hard part, isn't it?
Yeah. Link to everything Tristan does in the description. His blog, his YouTube channel. Check him out. He's got good stuff. So we'll go from there. And until next time, keep brushing up your game, everybody.